All right, today is Tuesday, June the 4th, and I'm here today talking with one of the, I guess I call them one of the premier returning citizens here in D.C. who have been exposed to restorative justice practices. My name is Dr. Salim, and I'm known in the community as Baba Salim. And I have my guest today, and it's my dear pleasure to welcome William Lewis here to the podcast. And William, I just want to say hello and welcome you, and thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me, Barbara. It's an honor and a pleasure to be sitting on your couch right
Wow,
across from
you're
you.
so kind, my brother.
Yeah, my man.
Yeah. Well, the whole purpose of this podcast, and as I have spoken to you, William, is that what we want to do is highlight some of you who have been involved in the criminal justice system, who have come up in D.C. and have gone off and done extensive prison time and have come back into the community, and you have gotten involved with restorative justice practices. And so the focus is to talk a little bit about your background and why you went away and what you did while you were away to prepare you for coming back into the community, and how you have begun to use some of this training and restorative justice exposure that you have gotten in the work that you're doing today. So I just would like for you to, first of all, tell us who you are and tell us what you're doing right now, and give us a little bit of how you were brought up in the city and things you were involved in as a youngster in D.C.
Well, first and foremost, like Barbara said, my name is William Lewis, aka Pooh Man. A lot of people know my nickname in the city.
What man?
Pooh Man, Pooman. It's
Oh
crazy
yeah.
because the name just continues to follow me no matter how
Is that
I
from the
try to get
pool
rid of
hall or the swimming pool?
it. No, it comes from, it's Poo. My aunt, my father told my aunt that she could name me. He knew I was going to have his name though. But so when I was born, she was looking to name me, and she named me. It was 1969, and it was a record called "Call Me the Poo Poo Man." So she nicknamed me Poo Poo Man. But you know how it is in the neighborhood; they shorten it up,
Yeah.
and Poo Man and Poo was easier.
Wow.
So
How
that
about
name has
that?
stuck with me. I'm 50. I'm almost 55 years old.
How about that?
Yeah, that name stuck with me. I'm a native Washingtonian. Grew up in primarily in the northeast quadrant over there in that little corner called Kenilworth Courts.
Okay.
Got some ties over here. I stayed in the southeast for a few years also. So I come up. My parents were married, but they got divorced shortly after I was born,
Oh, okay.
like about 4 years.
So you came up in a single
I
family, a
came
single
up.
parent home, family.
I came up in single family for a bit because unfortunately my father passed away when I was 9 years old, and then my mother passed away when I was 11.
Oh, wow.
Yes, so I was
That must have been traumatic
orphan.
for a youngster.
Yes,
Because
it
my
was.
father died when I was 5, and that was traumatic.
And the thing about it, Barbara, is I'm still realizing how traumatic it was. I didn't really it bothered me then, but you know how we are as black men, even as a young black man, you put it all behind you and you got to be kind of tough and not let it bother you. So I come up like that. So it's still a lot of trauma there that hasn't really been dealt with.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that I don't know if you're aware that I wrote a book a couple of years back, and the title was My Spiritual Journey to something like a higher consciousness or something, and from trauma to a faithful and prosperous life. And my trauma started, as I was saying, when my father was passed, and I was 5 years old, and I was the youngest in the family, and how I had to. My mother was a housewife, so she had to go for it, which left me all alone because I had other brothers and sisters. They were all going and doing their own way, so it was just me and my dog, right? So I know how that trauma is as a young age, and then as we go along, consequently, we run into other traumas.
Oh, no
So I'd like for
question.
you to talk a little bit more about your early childhood and some of your experiences that led you. You apparently were a product of the juvenile justice system.
I was not.
No,
Mm-mm.
wow,
I was
that's a
not.
new one.
I held on, man.
Just about everybody that I interviewed, they went to Oak Hill or Cedar
Man,
Knoll.
I
Or,
was not.
wow,
Nowhere near it,
isn't
Bob.
that something? Tell us a little bit about how you escaped that.
Well, when my mother and my father was living,
Right,
they put some staunch principles in me
I got you.
that I listened to. A few things, like I briefly, my mother told me that equality over quantity. I didn't know what that meant. Of course I do now, and I
Yeah,
live by it.
sure.
That was just one of the things that she put in me, and I'm like that with every aspect of my life. And my father, which was a nature boy as myself, and he told me when I'm going through something or I'm in a dark alley or something like that and I'm scared, tell Satan to get back 3 times. And I
Oh,
remember those things like
wow.
no other. What I'm getting at is while my parents was here, they did an excellent job. That's who you see right now. That's who the person I am today
I
comes
see.
from them putting those morals and
I got
principles in
you.
me. So they lasted a long time. But what happened was I went with my maternal grandmother who had moved in Kenilworth like in 1958. You know, she was one of the first ones to move in there. So I was with her. And she loved me, of course, but she had already raised her kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like I said, I had a strong foundation. So I come out my front door, all my friends was 13, 12 and stuff, selling drugs and things like that. But my family always really gave me everything I needed, right? You know, on the surface anyway.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So I didn't have to go out and hustle to get clothes or sneakers and always look better or as good as them. You know what I mean? So that was a good thing. And my uncles, I have an uncle, my main man, my uncle got locked up when I was younger. He's still locked up 42 years.
Oh, wow.
Right? And I had another uncle, thank God that he's off drugs now. He was on drugs for a long time. So I watched them and watched the guys in the neighborhood. But even though my uncle was on drugs, the one that was in the street always looked out for me, tried to keep me out of the street. But the thing is, when I graduated high school, I made it to high school, and I graduated Spingarn High School. Once I graduated, I gave my diploma to my grandmother, and I was off to the races, doing what
No,
I wanted to do for the last 5 years.
no kidding.
So it was one of those kind of situations with me. You know, all that built up, all that trauma and adverse childhood experience
Sure. And loss.
and loss, which
That's a
caused the
main
trauma.
piece, that
Yes,
loss of your parents.
yes, and
That's really traumatic.
that's traumatic. You know, with that right there, though, Barbara, I thought I was doing a good job at putting that in abeyance.
But did you ever get any therapy behind that?
Not then.
No.
Recently,
Okay.
in the last few
I
years.
got you. I got you.
But you know, that's why I said it's still a lot of unchecked trauma
Sure.
with me. I can admit that. But no, I didn't. So I had to come through like that and expressing myself through, you know, from dealing with those traumas and not knowing why. So what happened was when I got 17, got out of high school, got right in the street. You know, as soon as I got in the street, we were selling Love Boat back then in D.C. For people from D.C., you know, PCP.
Sure.
And man, no sooner as I jumped out there in them streets, that I got locked up about 3 months later.
No kidding.
And I got back out after I got locked up. I got out on third-party custody or something. And Barbara, I got a job. I got a job. My grandmother helped me get a job in the federal government, right? Department of Defense. And it was a low-level job, but I worked it for a couple of years. But I still had that itch, man.
That street thing, man.
I still,
it's,
know how
it's
that
like
is.
a
It's
magnet,
something that
ain't
you
it,
can't
boy?
explain
It's
it,
an
man.
addiction.
It is.
Yeah.
It's addictive. It's sure enough. It's just words are ineffable. You can't
I know.
explain
I got you.
what that pull is. And man, I jumped. Let me tell you this part though. When I was working, my grandma was in a supervisory position in HR at the Pentagon. So she said, Pooh, my supervisor said they starting this program in HVAC. They wasn't calling it that back then. So just we're going to get you in Lincoln Tech. After 9 months, you're going to come over here and you're going to make some good money, right? I started going to school after work. Man, I got to like 7 months and something, I don't know,
No
the
kidding.
foolishness. Jumped all the way out there, Barbara. Jumped to quit work, quit school, and in 5 months, I had 15 to 45 years.
Do you
Well,
mind?
no, I'm sorry. Let me take that back. Within 5 months, I caught a serious case,
Right.
right? And this is the case that led me to getting 15 to 45 years the next summer.
Can I ask you what the charge was?
The charge was assault on a police officer with a dangerous weapon. That was my charge.
Wow.
And something that's interesting is that I didn't have a weapon.
No kidding.
I was aiding and abetting.
And if you could afford a good lawyer at that time, you
Yeah.
could have come away from that. But
I
see,
could
that's
have
what they get us with all the time, that we don't have enough money. They give us what they call those public defenders.
Public defender.
And they trying to hurry up and get rid of you. You know, they got to go to the next case and the next case. They ain't going to spend a lot of time on it. So what they going to do is have you cop. Did you cop?
I on that one, I did not.
Okay.
I did not because the guy that I was with took responsibility,
Okay.
right? But I had a bench trial. I didn't have a jury trial. I wasn't judged by 12. I
Okay.
let the judge do it because he's saying that I didn't have anything to do with it because we were in a car and he was shooting out of a window, right? He was shooting a gun out of a window in a small space, and I was on the driver's side. Actually, Barbara, the funny thing is, I actually got assaulted in the case. I got a graze on my eye. The police grazed me right here.
Wow.
And a bullet fragment in my jaw.
Wow.
Right? And so because he was taking the case, I thought that's how it went. He taking the case, they're going to cut me off. I didn't need a lawyer. You cut me off. But the judge was like, nah, you could have separated yourself. Me bleeding and everything, hysterical. But he said that, man, when you pulled away, you could have separated yourself away from that, man. So you aiding and abetting.
Well, this is what I call come back to give back. It's a restorative justice approach from prison to community life. And it's about how many of the D.C. men, some women, but mostly men, have gotten caught up in the mass conspiracy of locking up African American men in the District of Columbia, just like they have done in other parts of this country. And I want to say that they couldn't let you go because you were a part of their plan to lock up as many young black men as they could. And if you had brought them a lot of money, of course, you probably could have gotten out of it. But in most cases, we didn't have a lot of money to pay an attorney. So that's why the prisons were so full of us going off into the federal system. And I had a brother that was always locked up, and he was in Lawton. And I just noticed that it was a part of the way that the system operated as far as the criminal justice system and the Department of Corrections as far as making money off of us filling beds. Now, were you a part of the transition from Lawton to the federal system, or was that somewhere beyond your time?
I think that took place a few times, if I'm correct, right?
Okay.
But I was one of those times that was taken from Lawton into the federal system. It happened with me because they were going through a process of closing Lawton down.
Right.
Like this was like they started talking about it in like 1997. I end up leaving Lawton and being transferred to the private facility in Youngstown, Ohio.
Right.
In January of 1999, they end up closing Lawton
Were
completely.
you a
in
part of that
2001.
crew that tore up that prison?
I was not. I
I heard about that
yes,
Youngstown crew, though.
I came after that.
Okay. I got
Yeah,
you.
they had a lawsuit and everything. They got some money for that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I came out that I went there in '99 because what happened was, Barbara, briefly, they sent from the way I get it, they sent a lot of the worst prisoners up there when they opened it in '97 with dummy jackets,
Yeah.
with dummy files.
Right.
So a lot of people was beefing. So there's a lot of stabbings, few killings,
Yeah.
and after the killings, they start cleaning it up a little bit,
Yeah.
and getting the jacket straight and the files straight and sending vetting and with the security level, having the security level straight on the guys they sending up there and all that kind of stuff. But they tried it at first, and we lost a couple of men.
Because of my awareness of dealing with juvenile and criminal justice for a long time, I noticed that, and I didn't assume this. I think in some kind of way I did some research how the plan was to close down Lawton, Department of Corrections, and the federal system. And I'm not going to say that this is an actuality, but when you think about the DC, DOC, and the feds making a negotiation plan in terms of revenue and how much money that followed each prisoner to the federal system for how much it costs for each bed and what have you, and the money factor behind this behind this whole thing, how they did that, and to this day, they're still making money through DOC. I guess that contract is still everlasting.
No question.
Because they're still sending our men to the federal system.
Because it was an easy transition because this federal ground anyway.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
and we don't have nowhere, then it's easy.
It was an easy transition, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm talking about for them.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No question. They can take it and do what they want to it when they want to do something with it. They want to put houses down here on Lawton, that's what we're going to do.
Well, speaking of Lawton, Louis, how long were you in Lawton?
When I first came in, Bob, I told you that was 1991. When I came in off the street from Sentencing. So I came in, they gave me a youth study,
Right.
which is an orientation. They said they considering giving you a youth act. I was 21. I was almost 22 years old. I was almost too old once I turned 22. But they judged, I had cut loose Bruce. I don't know if you ever heard of that judge, Bruce Bowden. He was known to be really lenient.
Oh, yeah.
But at the time I came through, unfortunately, they had articles in the paper about him being lenient. So instead of 15 to 45 months, he gave me 15 to 45 years.
Wow.
So, yeah. And I had Bruce. So when I came in, I stayed in Lawton. I stayed over Youth Center 1, like about 3 months, went back to court. Bruce gave me adult sentence. Once they gave me that adult sentence, because I wasn't on the compound in Lawton. I was in one of those modulars, an annex type situation, so I wasn't on the compound. Once they gave me that adult sentence, they shipped me straight to Mason, Tennessee. They had a CCA in Mason, Tennessee, which is like 20 minutes outside of Memphis. So 4 months after I was in, I was on a state load. So it was bizarre, but it was some Tennessee guys up there, but we was housed with other guys from Lawton. That's how they usually do us when they send us on state loads. So I stayed out there from 91 to 93, and I came back, and to answer your question, I came back to Lawton. I stayed in Lawton from 94 to 99. I told you I went to Ohio in 99. So I stayed in Lawton 5 years roughly.
Were you able to get involved in any particular personal development stuff, any educational stuff, any training, skill development, anything while you were incarcerated?
I had all kinds of chances, and I did enroll in UDC a few times. But at that time, I was young, and if my friends on the field and they doing their little thing, might be smoking some weed, or if I can say that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they smoking some weed or something. Man, I that pull again, so I done started UDC a few times. I probably got about 5 or 6 credits, but I run to the field. But I was big on, I was somewhat of an iconoclast, right? So I like to teach myself. I was into like reading about the Panthers and reading about reading Karl Marx and Engels and George L. Jackson. Some of those. I
Right.
was into that kind of
Sure, in a
education.
radical stance.
Kind of radical.
Yeah, sure.
And that's how I was expressing myself.
Sure.
So at that time, that's where I was at. You know, reading the dictionary and stuff like that,
Okay.
man. Yeah. That's the kind of.
You're
That's
one
kind
of the
I'm one of them.
the radical intellectual kind.
Right. That's where I was at, man. But it make me laugh when I think back on it.
You know, that's also a part of why they shut Lawton down too, because there were a lot of brothers that were getting degrees. My brother got a master's degree. I didn't know that until he died coming out of the Baltimore jail on the day that he was released, right? And then years later, in fact, my sister had his stuff. When she passed, I went through all of his things, and I discovered that he had a master's degree from George Washington University.
You could get it in
And
Lawton.
his main man, I don't know, no, he's much older than you, but it's a guy named Donald Streeter. He got a law degree from Georgetown while at Lawton.
Okay. See, but when I was coming through there, Barbara, they had stopped some of that. It was still good now. Don't get it twisted. When I was there, you could get AAs. They wouldn't let you get a BA.
Okay.
You can get a couple of AAs, and then they cut it out altogether. But you can go to UDC and get an AA in what is the name of that major that they was getting not civil services.
Not general studies or nothing like that?
That's not the name of it. I can't think of it, man. I can't. Accounting, you can do something in accounting.
Okay.
But I'm trying to think of this one that everybody took. If it'll come to me. But yeah, they had lightened up on it some when I was there.
Now that when did you get out?
I'm what you call, Barbara, a 2-time recipient. Right? I got out in 2007 when I did the 16 years and 4 months. I stayed out for 5 years, and my foolish self went back in for another 5. So yeah, I'm a 2-time recipient, Barbara. It took a couple of times for me to learn, man.
So you came out the second time in what year?
2017.
Okay. So what was your first job when you came out?
In 2017?
Yeah.
I'm a fitness guy, Bob. I always have been through the joint. And I had my certification. So I was working at LA Fitness.
Okay.
And they didn't have a job as a trainer. I was one that when you come in, I do the orientation with you. I go through a little workout routine with you. And it's like I was doing an assessment.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And I wanted to kind of train.
Right.
So I kind of, that was short-lived.
And when did you get involved with this restorative justice work? Did you become a credible messenger?
Yes, I became.
With what organization?
I was what you call, when I came in 2020, November. But Roger Mitchell,
Yeah.
I believe, Roger Mitchell, it was a spike in crime. And he said, with the credible messages, we need some more help. We need some people to really get in there and be able to go around the city and do certain things. So it was a pilot for a violence prevention specialist.
Sure.
So my title was violence prevention specialist, and I was getting paid through ACM, Alliance of Concerned Men.
Right.
So that's who I was working for, but not working for.
I understand. Sure.
You know what I mean? They was cutting my check, but I was working with my friend Musa Norman and Charles Dodson.
Sure.
I was kind of working right up under them.
Yeah. Well, I know them all because I have practically worked with all of them.
Of course you have.
And I want to say that out of all of my career and all the work that I've done and training I've done, working with all of you brothers who came up in the street and came back from prison from long bits has been the most rewarding experience that I've had in my whole career. As a matter of fact, I just relocated last summer to a little town down in Virginia called Collinsville, where my mother, my father, and area, my parents were born and raised. And I'm attempting to set up a returning citizens program down there based on all that I have learned from you guys over the past 5 years.
Yeah.
Because of what positive effect that it has had on me as a human, So you have shifted that addiction now, I would imagine, the street addiction.
Oh, it's no question about
Yes, sir.
Transferable skills.
So let me ask you this.
Thank the Lord for transferable skills.
Let me ask you this. How did you feel about your involvement with restorative justice, and if you're doing anything with it now, what are you doing as far as restorative justice in the community is concerned?
Oh man, it was a beautiful thing, man. Coming, I look forward to coming to the training because I know that, like you call it, the restorative work, and people call it outreach and we transform to mentors and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, the answers is in the community,
Right.
right? And so when you talk about the answers being in the community, it takes the people that's in the community to bring the restoration.
That's right.
So it was man, it was great for me. And I'm also a person that I love to learn. Right now, I train. I do group facilitations. I train workshops and stuff like that. But I also never forget. I always go to my trainings too.
Okay.
So I always like to be trained and put
Right.
tools in my belt as well.
Right.
And restorative justice was one of the main tools that I put in my belt. And as it pertains to the work that I'm doing now, man, like I told you, I'm a part of the community, so I'm a part of the answer. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
yes, restorative justice. Words can't describe how I use the restorative justice. Sometimes I'm always using. I'm using it every day
Yeah,
because I'm
it
always
becomes a
trying to
part of your
restore.
life. I have this philosophy about how if you do this work long enough, you become a restorative person.
Yes,
Everything you
that's
say,
where I'm at.
everything you do, everything you touch has some kind of a restorative connotation
There's
to
no
it. Am I
question.
right?
There's no doubt about it. If
Yeah.
if you if you are truly doing the Lord's work, man. If you truly doing the Lord's work, man, then yes, it's got those connotations because you want to restore. You definitely want to
Yeah,
restore.
because you see how essential it is to bring about restorative justice. Now, here we are, as we get closer to closing out this interview. Here you are, a brother that grew up in the streets of D.C. and come up in a good household. And I'm drawing this kind of a picture of how we get led into the criminal justice system because the early childhood trauma and the fact that you had become addicted to the lifestyle, and by the grace of God, I know a lot of good things happened while you were in, as far as your personal development. You became a better person, I would imagine, in so many ways.
Oh, you imagining right?
You know what I mean? And then you come out and get exposed to this restorative justice world and how you are impacting the community. Now, just a little short response, how has your work, because this whole interview is about how it's like come back to give back using restorative justice practices to help restore the community in which you come out of. Exactly how do you feel that you are contributing to improve your community by using this practice?
It's funny, and I was thinking while you were talking, right, and I was listening, but it made me think about PCP again, right, and now with that, and I talk about this all the time. I speak and I'll say, man, PCP, not talking about the toxic PCP that we know it as, right? But one of my main formulas for restoration is PCP, and the acronym stands for presence, right? Presence, always got to be present, right?
Right.
Consistency,
Absolutely.
and I'm always consistently who I am.
Right.
And those words are interchangeable, but they are different.
Right.
And positivity.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And that's kind of what helps me thrive, whether it be restoring the justice, you know, just helping somebody. I just think, like I say, I thank God for giving me a spirit, a restorative spirit, man. And I just do what I do, Barbara. I always, and I have made a few strides. Like I say, I started out credible messenger. Now I work for DYRS in a managerial role, right?
Okay.
Right. And so now I'm a manager of the credible messenger,
Okay.
right? And I always make sure I go back and I touch those young people. I always go back and touch those young people. And anything that I'm putting in my belt, I share with them.
So this work has actually restored your life.
It's no question. I want for my brother. I truly want for my brother what I want for myself.
There you go. Okay, well, I just want to say, man, this has been a delightful experience to talk to you for a few minutes. We could talk for the next hour or two, but I want to bring it to a close. Are there any remarks that you would like to make as we close out this interview?
I do, and I didn't get a chance to say this in the interview. But like I told you, I've been in it for a little bit now, and I've been trained, and I do some training now. And I always, when I'm doing the training, the main thing I see for us as a people, for returning citizens, and us in the work, right? We strong. We got a shared life experience. Of course, shared life experience is there. That's one of the meat and potatoes of why we are good at the work. But what I want to tell the brothers, right, is to take professionalizing the work seriously. That's where I see that we kind of challenged.
Right.
Professionalizing the work. I mean, you know what I'm saying? When I say professionalizing the work, learning the language.
Right.
You got to learn to speak the language.
That's right.
Because you might have a feeling, you might have an idea, but if you can't convey your message the right way,
That's
you're
right.
going to be stagnated.
Yes, sir.
Make it one way. Don't stay stuck in the 68.4 square miles.
Yes, sir.
Make yourself one size fits all.
Yes, sir.
You take your show anywhere.
Wow. Man, I'm so impressed, man. I know Hassani has told me about you. I remember you from the training, and I do remember how intelligent you are. But to come back in contact with you in this setting is even more impressive for me. I'm not sure what's going to come out of these interviews or what have you. I would like for it to be a documentary so that we can show the world the brilliance of the men that came out of D.C. and how it was a part of a plan to lock all of y'all down so that you all wouldn't take that brilliance into the world and make a change. And so you all are still relatively young. You can still make a change. And I pray that you take this work and continue to restore the lives of others that you come in contact with. I want to thank you so much, Wiliam, for coming out and talking with me. I want to wish you the best in all your endeavors and continue to know that there is a higher force that's out here that is responsible for guiding you here with me today to make a difference for those who are going to listen to this interview or look at this interview.
Much obliged.
And I thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.